Homewood, it's so unrefined. We have to get Moon with the Vulcans behind. Moon over Homewood, we don't think it's fair that we have to look at his big derriere.
Hey guys, it's Brandon with Iron City. I was going through my gear today and deciding what I was going to take for these next tournaments that are coming up, and realized it was a good opportunity to answer some of your questions about what do you absolutely have to bring to an Iron City kayak tournament, things that will help you out, things that will make sure you don't disqualify versus just kind of nice to have options. So I'm going to split this into two categories. First, things that you have to have in order for you not to get disqualified, and the second piece is what kind of will help you out and make sure that your fishing experience is a lot easier as you work with us.
Alright, first things first is we're going to ask you guys to have some form of a boat. Kayaks are great. We also allow paddle boards, like you see my Kaku Kahuna here. It's kind of a kayak paddleboard hybrid. We also allow canoes. You see it in the background of the trailer is my Coleman's canoe that I use for more moving water anytime I have a second person with me. So kayaks, canoes, paddle boards, all those things are okay. We do not allow John boats or bass boats that you're trying to paddle. It has to be some form of a man-powered boat, like a kayak, a paddle board, or a canoe. Once you've decided what boat you're going to paddle, the next thing we really recommend that you guys bring to avoid a disqualification is your paddle. Now, you can either use a double-bladed paddle or a single-bladed paddle like a canoe paddle itself, but we recommend you bring the paddle because it sucks to paddle a boat without one if you're just going to use your hands. But we also don't allow motors inside of our tournament, so make sure that you bring a paddle. Now, if you're going to use something like a Hobie Mirage Drive, that's perfectly fine. Let us know ahead of time so we can look at it. We just want to make sure that you're not dropping in some kind of a Torqeedo or one of those drop-in pieces, that you absolutely are fishing with a paddle, because we don't allow the motors. Second thing we're going to recommend, or you absolutely have to have in order to avoid a disqualification, is a hog trough. And the reason why we use the hog trough is because it is a kayak fishing standard. You can buy this in a white version or inside of the yellow version like you're showing here. But the biggest thing you want to do with your hog trough is make sure you darken your lines on here so that you can see it, because it's going to be terrible when we measure your fish down the first one we can see. If you've got an 18 3/4 inch fish but we can only read the 18 line because you didn't darken your lines in, we're going to score your fish at an 18. Again, this is the only acceptable scoring device that we're going to use inside of our pictures. So now once you do have those pictures, we recommend that you use some kind of a digital camera. I use my iPhone. You guys can use a standard digital camera, you can use a GoPro, but either way you have to have the ability to take a picture with your hog trough from your phone, and that way we can see what the fish is. It's going to have to include your tournament identifier as well, but you're going to want to use some form of digital camera. Remember, I have to have the ability to pull the pictures off if I need to, and it has to have the ability to have a timestamp in the event there's a question about when you caught your fish. So make sure you use an iPhone or a digital camera or a GoPro, that way we can utilize it. What we're also going to require you guys to use is a fishing rod of some variety with a reel. It has to have a reel attached to it. We're not going to allow just a standard cane pole or some kind of a trolling device off of the back of the boat. It's going to have to be a fishing rod with a fishing reel on it. We do recommend that you bring as many as you can inside the boat, but you can only fish with one at any given point in time. So you can't just sling a bull shad off the back and fish with a spinnerbait up in the front while you're doing it. You need to make sure only one lure is in the water at any given point in time. We do recommend you use some kind of a rod floater or rod tubes. And again, we're only going to allow you to use something like this that is an artificial lure. And that's not a real fish, it's not cut shad, it's a real artificial lure. So make sure you use the artificial ones at all. So no live shad trolling from our boats. Last piece of equipment that you absolutely are going to have in order to avoid a DQ, and probably the most important piece of equipment you're going to have in your boat, even when you're out fun fishing, is going to be your life jacket. Life jackets have to be on you at all times that you're fishing from your boat. They have to be on you, they have to fit properly, because they're what's going to save your life in the event that something stupid happens on the water, like you hit a strainer accidentally, you fall out of the boat and you hit your head. You know, it's what keeps you up, and it buys you some time between you falling out of the boat and your buddy coming and helping you out as best as possible. You know, one of the worst things that could happen is you fall out of the boat, you don't have your life jacket on, you're wearing dark colored clothing instead of the light stuff like we've got. You fall down, your buddy looks for you, can't see you anywhere. Give him a chance by you floating and you wearing some type of bright colored piece of clothing, that way he can find you as best as possible. But another side benefit of most of these PFDs that are specific for the kayak anglers, again, they're high back, so they're comfortable against your kayak, but they've got all sorts of options for your pockets. Usually what I'll do is I'll take my iPhone, and I've got a piece of cordage with my LifeProof case, and I connect it here with the cordage, screw it in, and I'll attach it here to my kayak, to my PFD itself, and I'll slide it inside of a pocket. That way, if I fall out of the boat and something happens and miraculously this iPhone pops out of this pocket, it's still attached to me. But also, if I'm taking a picture of a fish and the fish knocks it out, it's not floating in the bottom of the water, it's actually still attached to my life jacket. So I also attach a whistle for when I'm on big water and the boat doesn't see me. They have the ability to hear me as best I can, in addition to me waving my arms with my huge, with my bright colored sleeves. Maybe I'm waving my paddle up in the air. I'm doing one of these numbers. That way he has the ability to see me and I don't get run over. So your PFD has the ability to attach things that you need on you immediately. You know, I've got scissors in here. A lot of guys on the fly fishermen have spare flies in there, but anything that you need to get to immediately needs to be attached to this PFD. Again, this PFD is on you at all times that you're fishing from your kayak. We don't require you when you're wade fishing to wear it, but it's not a bad recommendation for you guys to keep it on anyways. If for some reason you do not have your PFD on you, you don't have your fish getting the pictures taken with a hog trough, you're fishing from something other than a kayak or a canoe or a paddle board, you're fishing with something other than a pedal drive or with something other than a paddle, like you've got a motor, or you're fishing with something other than a standard rod and reel combo, it's an automatic DQ. Please don't do it. Now that we've covered the basics of what you absolutely have to have to fish one of our tournaments, I'm going to give you a couple of tips of what's been beneficial to me as I have done a few of these kayak tournaments. And the most important thing that I have learned is you need to find some way to leash what you love to you or to your boat, because if you don't leash it, you're going to lose it off the boat. I can't tell you how many countless numbers of pliers and scissors I've dropped in the water and lost. You know, you got expensive rods and reels that you could possibly lose. So I just go buy cheap dog leashes. I'll wrap them around my chair so they're tied up here, and then I can tie off my rods to it by using that clip. And we're done. For those of you that haven't figured out how to make your rod trough float yet, you can clip your rod trough off here as well. That way it's not going to go anywhere. But anything that you absolutely love and you want to keep in your boat, make sure you leash it. On that same concept, I also recommend that you find some way to leash your fish to your boat. Now, in the rules we state you can't use stringers to hold your fish. And what we mean by that is you cannot use a stringer to have 5, 6, 7 fish and then wait and take pictures of all of them at the same time. We want to make sure that you catch, photograph, and release your fish all within a couple of minutes of it. So you catch it, a few minutes later you're releasing it and he's swimming off into the water. That being said, things happen on the water and you can't necessarily keep that fish out. So a lot of times your iPhone, for whatever reason, you can't get your iPhone up and running, your battery's dead on your GoPro and you've got to swap it out, you're having issues with your hog trough, you know, you're in a situation where you caught your fish and you just can't have him, you know, you just need to paddle out of the situation. Get some kind of a leash. You can use a clip like I use, which is the basic stringer clip. It pops to the membrane. I clip him back up and he's good and he's held on here. I could drop him off the boat and he's here. Or you can use some of the grips that Rooster was showing everybody at the meeting. That's perfectly fine as well. But either way, some kind of a tether that, again, I wrap around the chair. And now, once I, for whatever reason, if I have to clip the fish, I can drop him off here. He's in the water, he's fine. I'm doing whatever I've got to do to get ready and prepared for it. And pick it back up, he's not starving for any type of oxygen. What is also as beneficial is when you're taking a picture and you've got your fish clipped up, and your clip, again, can't block here, but you've got your clip laid over here, and for some reason, while you're taking your picture, your fish goes nuts, he's off the boat, you didn't lose your fish, he's still attached to here, you can stop and pull it back over. On that same note of tethering, we really recommend that you guys find some way to tether your sunglasses up. A lot of you guys paid a lot of money for Costas or Wiley X's or Ray-Bans. Some of us don't spend that much. We still keep our sunglasses tethered. You want to get something to come out of a strap that sticks around your neck, so if it flops down, you're good. And I really recommend you get something that floats again, because that way your sunglasses are floating down the water versus sitting at the bottom of the river that you may or may not ever see again. We do recommend some form of a crate system, whether it be a milk crate, a J crate, the black pack, or the cheap old cooler like I like here. I have all my rod holders attached to this one because the Kaku doesn't come with a rod holder system, so this kind of duplicates some things for me. I've got a strap running the top of it, so in the event that I flip over, that lid's not coming off very easily and dumping all my stuff out. But inside of here, I keep a few things. Terminal tackle box, all my Plano boxes. I'm using some cheaper ones right now that aren't waterproof, but I am moving towards the waterproof boxes, specifically the ones with the Z-Rust in them. That way it's waterproof, so water's not getting in there, but as a side benefit, it floats. So if for some reason I've got it on top of the boat, and it falls out, it's floating down there. Eric Atkins with North Alabama Kayak Anglers has a great write-up on how to make these things phenomenal. But also keeping there another waterproof box that holds my wallet and my car keys. That way it stays waterproof, as again it floats, so if it does flop out, I still have my car keys, I still have my wallet, I still have a way to get home. This is invaluable. You're going to need some way to write your tournament identifier so that we can see it. We're going to announce the tournament ID at the captain's meeting, and typically it's going to be some form of a letter or a number combo. So you can write it with the Sharpie marker on your hand. That way when you take a picture of your fish and you're holding your fish down, we can see it. As long as it's not obstructing the gills or the tail, we'll have the ability to see what your tournament ID. But for those of you who don't want to write it on your hand, an index card is great. You can write your tournament identifier down on a piece of paper, and you have it inside of your picture, and it'll sit up there like this with your fish. The downside of the index cards is that they're paper, so they will get destroyed by water that's on your boat, and they'll fly out of it. So the last little piece of recommendation I have for you guys is to buy one of these cheap waterproof pouches that are for your cell phones or other things. So what you can do is you can slide your tournament ID inside of here, lock it in place, that way it's waterproof, and going back to our tether comment, now you've got it tethered to your boat because they have tether clips, and your tournament ID is not going to fly out and get ruined, and you can't fish the rest of the day with a fish because it's waterproof, it's tethered to your boat, it's not going anywhere. A side benefit of the waterproof pouches is a lot of times you guys are fishing 2 tournaments in one, meaning you're fishing an Iron City one, but you're also fishing a NACA Big Bass event for the whole month, or you're fishing a river bass and big bass event for the entire month. So you can take a picture on one side with our tournament ID, flip it, and take another picture of the fish. You've got the same fish you're weighing in for 2 tournaments, which is completely totally fine, inside your waterproof ID that's attached to the boat. Again, guys, these are just some recommendations to make your life easier. The only thing that you really absolutely have to have for your tournaments, again, you've got to have your boat, your paddle, your rod and reel, a phone or camera, your hog trough, and then you absolutely have to have your PFD. Those are things that will keep you from getting disqualified. Anything else is just help. If you have any questions, let me know. Email me, ironcitykayakanglers@gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook. We'll answer any questions we possibly can. Thanks again. We'll talk to y'all soon.
Moon over Homewood, we don't think it's fair that we have to look at his big derriere.